Hello and welcome to another video, and I seem to start a bit of a debate about heat, didn't I? So yeah, it was a very hot week, wasn't it? I think we get 33.2 in here, something like that. But yeah, it was a hot week, but been an interesting one. Again, thank you for your support. And the other day I went to Whitstable, and yeah, beautiful stunning place, well worth a visit. Takes you back to sort of like old England, really. As I say, it's on the northeast coast of Kent, well worth the visit, and especially if you like a lot of the old types of bars and all that, it's just well worth, I keep saying well worth the visit because it just is. And I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I did know Peter Cushing come from there, which I'm a bit of a, obviously, horror and Star Wars. He was in Star Wars and he played Sherlock Holmes, and so yeah, it was right down my street and really enjoyed the visit. But it's because it's got so many haunted tales and haunted locations that really intrigues me about the area. And you know, it's really old. I keep saying about the age of the places that we go to, and I think the problem is that if you don't live in the UK, you don't understand how old a lot of our places are. For us, we take it for granted. You know, we've got local pubs sort of like 1500. You know, it's just part of everyday life, really. Whitstable is an ancient town. Started off with Romans, really, and there's obviously prehistoric stuff there. It was in a Doomsday book, and he mainly got fame for his oysters. So it became well known for the oyster trade and some smuggling, as most of these little port towns did in the past. So a problem with locations like Whitstable is that there's so much history and paranormal history, you don't know where to start. Looking up on the internet and all that sort of stuff, you're not going to find a lot of information about the ghost stories. As you'll see in this video, I meet a absolutely brilliant bartender who does a bit to camera for me in here, and I'm totally proud of it. The ending of it is just fantastic. It's very short, but he nailed it. I'm hoping that I can play the whole video clip because there was live music in the bar behind him. But yeah, the guy is fantastic and he really looks the part as well. You know, so Whitstable, it's all these old narrow streets. It's right on the shorefront, so it's all the fishermen's cottages, and you can walk down all these alleyways, and you can just imagine at night time it's really creepy. And we stayed there till late at night. It does, the feeling changes, but being there during the day and the early evening, the sunset, everything looked absolutely beautiful. Everyone we met down there was really nice. There's a funny instance on the beach that I won't go into. May go into it on the members channel or on the live stream, talk about it one day. But yeah, it's just a really nice evening down there. Feeling the history as you're walking down the street, you can feel the history of the place. The harbour suffered so much bombing during World War II, a lot of the original buildings were demolished, and it allowed some modern rebuilding to take place, and we lost some of our golden trophies, I guess, of these old streets. Lucky enough, what we haven't lost is things like Harbour Street, High Street and Oxford Street, where we've got some of the oldest buildings in the area. Some of those have been redeveloped, the old Fiesta, the Peter Cushing's Witherspoons, but it's better than knocking it down and everything like that. Where do we go with the paranormal history? The harbour itself, literally just outside the car park, and we've got a little shots here where I walk down a little bit of a bridgeway looking out over the sea. The standard run-of-the-mill things of ghosts of fishermen walking along there, but an interesting one is a young lady that he's seen walking along the shoreline of that coastal area. The descriptions of the lady does vary. Some say she's wearing a full heavy dress, almost like a nun, and that does fall into something in Harbour Street. Others say she's more like a fisherman's wife, and they say that she's more like a fisherman's wife because sometimes she is seen pushing like a trolley along that foreshore, which would fall in line, if that is the mooring point for a lot of the oyster boats. This is where she would have been there and collecting the oysters and taking them down to the oyster sheds where everything was being salted. If it's the Nun, this falls into the ghost of Harbour Street. The ghost of Harbour Street, and apparently this lady haunts not just Harbour Street, going as far as up to the junction with High Street, where you have the Duke of Cumberland Hotel. This grey lady is said to be seen walking that street late of the night time. Mainly when it's a stormy night, she is seen walking across the street and into a building. This building was linked to a nunnery, so that is where people believe that she's a nun. But the description of her on that street, again, they say a nun-like dress, but not that it was definitely a nun dress. They just call her the Grey Lady. What links her to the Cumberland Hotel? I don't really have much information on that. Looking back on the history of the Cumberland Hotel, that has got its own haunted history as well. Now, this is another place where bar staff has said that doors bang, shadows moving around, that somebody was lost their life upstairs in one of the boarding rooms up there. So we've got a lot of substantial activity going along just in that one building that you could set a whole investigation up and do just on the Cumberland Hotel. We're trying to get as many in as possible so that you can take a walk down there yourself and have a look and see what you feel about it. But this Grey Lady is meant to haunt walking up Harbour Street, either going into a building on the left hand side or making her way around the corner to where the Cumberland Hotel is and then moving off almost up to a part of the High Street. When I say to the part of the High Street, she's not going as far as the theatre, the Peter Cushing Witherspoons, so that's going too far up there. So it's that first section of High Street before you get to like the Oxford Street Junction. Is there a lot of reports? Yeah, this is a very well reported sighting of this Grey Lady. The accounts we've had date back to the early of the 20th century. So we've got some in 1902, some in 1912, some in 1940. It's not time restricted to when the paranormal stuff become really fashionable. As far as I can find, there's very limited interaction with the lady in Harbour Street. But on the harbour side, we do have a gentleman that believed that it was his wife. Now, this is an elder gentleman, and we're going back to 1960. He's walking along that foreshore. There's a pathway that goes right along the harbour, right away up to where Peter Cushing's house is on the side of the seafront. He's walking along the pathway. His wife said that she's going to catch up with him. He starts his walk with the dog, and he's just walking along, and she takes her time and she's diving around, and she hasn't got there. She's not caught him up. He doesn't know that. He turns around and it's getting dusk, sees the figure of the lady walking along the pathway, and he's like, at last, there she comes. And he stops, he waits, and she seems to be taking her time, like she's like walking in water, just taking her time getting to him. And he thinks, right, it turns around. He walks back towards her, and he gets closer and closer, and he's thinking, that's not my wife. That's not her. And he's staring, and he's staring, and then he said fear comes over him. And he wasn't sure why this dread, this fearful feeling hit. At the same point, the lady, who had been walking very, very slowly, sped up. As she got closer to him, he describes her face as extremely weathered. Now, as if it's never seen moisture in 100 years. He said it was so weathered, it looked just like dry leather. He's looking at her, trying to make out if he knows her or recognises her. This fear of dread starts building inside him more and more. He gets closer to her, and now we're talking 20 yards, 10 yards. He staggers back as he looks at the lady. She has no eyes. He said he can see right through the eye sockets, and the lady just carries on walking. He steps aside and just lets this lady walk past, and then after sort of another 10-15 yards, she fades out and vanishes. He's left there in shock, and he doesn't know what to do about it. The dog didn't react. That was one of the things that, when I read the story, the dog did not react. Now, normally, you'd think the dog would be barking and all that, but the dog literally just sat down and just let this lady walk past. Didn't bark, didn't sniff, done nothing. While he's standing there in shock, his wife does walk up the pathway and says to him, "What's up with you?" And he goes, "I think I've just seen a ghost." And she says, "Oh, well, don't be silly." And he goes, "No, I think I've just seen a ghost." He goes, "You look down there, can you see anyone walking down that path?" "No." He goes, "The lady walked past me about 30 seconds ago. I think it was definitely a ghost." The next location is literally just on the other side of the sea wall, and this is actually called the Sea Wall, and that is the name of the road. It's very quaint, got all these sort of like twisted buildings, all fishermen's cottages all down there, and I imagine that you could spook yourself quite easily walking down this alleyway of a late night time. I've known the story, and there's 2 cottages at the end that are brick, and you'll see them in the video, and then there's a white cottage next to it with the door slightly higher up. Although I'm not naming the cottages, I'm telling you where they are, because a local person out on one of the forums and a bit unsure if the residents know, and apparently one of these houses belonged to a well-known thief. And what he would do, he would manage to get hold of lamb, beef, use oysters, many oysters as you wanted. He could get you food that wasn't easy to get during hard times. No questions asked. Finally, he did get caught. He may have not gone through the proper justice system and was dealt with by local people. We're looking around about 1750. These houses are not that old, but they've been built on that site. I say not that old. They could well be that old. Some of those sheds could be that old. I know some of the buildings along the other side have got 1857 on them, so it's not stretching that these are just 56 years older. He is said to haunt those buildings. Now, from my understanding, they may have all been one building at one point, they've been joined up, or that he knew people in those buildings that he used to use all of that area. But he was the main sort of dealer there that you'd go to if you just wanted something, and he could get it for you. He upset the wrong person, justice was dealt out in not a legal way, and he comes back and haunts the area. We got another case like that further on that we're going to come to with one of the pubs, but it does seem that during this time, and it's very like our local history around here, justice was dealt out at a local level. So the George and Dragon, which is just down the road from here, was sort of used as the courthouse, so they used to do a lot of their stuff there, and the Cumberland Hotel was also used as a courthouse from time to time. So the justice system was localised, and they could deal out their own punishments. This one was never officially recorded apparently, but they did deal out their own justice. Now, the next location I'm going to talk about, I'm going to do a little bit first. I just want to say a little bit about Troy Cummings. Now, he tragically died in Evelyn's Alley, that is on this part of the road that we're about to talk about. And they are very narrow alleyways. Unfortunately, he lost his life down there in a violent event that somebody is in prison for, and that happened on the 22nd of November 2000, and he was only 28 years old, and he was a local rugby player, and he's sadly missed by his team members and his family, and they've put a wonderful plaque up on the wall of the alleyway. I want to say that because I will put a photo up of it, because I think things like that should be respected, and we're talking about places that in history where bad things happen that leave a lasting spirit, and it would be wrong not to mention there's something that happened recently that creates these atmospheres down certain alleyways. What we're looking here is the Naval Reserve pub, and this is just a few foot past that alleyway. So no surprise, the Royal Naval Reserve is said to be haunted by lots of fishermen and sailors, and So people that have worked in the pub over the long history that it's been there, and the buildings next to it, say that they do sense people in there. Once it's all shut up, they feel as if they're never alone in there. And one particular area of the Royal Naval Reserve, by the doors, is where someone says that a sailor sits and watches everybody come and go, and other people said when they're sat there, they feel as if they're sitting in a cold spot. Now this is by the door, or so it could be. You're going to find a lot of these stories. We have this up at the White Lion up in Fobbing. You're going to find a lot of these stories have that same sort of familiar feeling to them. But that's probably not coincidence. This is probably, if, and I say if, paranormal, ghosts and all that are real, why not? This is where this fisherman probably went every day, or when he got off his boat. Why not? It's his comfortable spot. He doesn't come back there and spend his time chilling out, resting and watching the world go by. And watching the world go by. And look, we've got Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing used to go to the tea rooms just further up, the Tudor tea rooms, and he spent his days sitting in that cafe, drinking his tea, painting pictures of people that were walking in, and he loved that area. And the museum in Whitstable has got a whole place dedicated to him, and he's a big part of their environment. Sailors and all that still would have loved this area just as much as Peter Cushing did. If they want to come back and haunt a place, why not? It seems very fitting. What we do have is a police officer in 1980 driving down that road that says that an old sailor walks across the road in front of him, he slams on, and he looks round and the sailor disappears. I take that with a pinch of salt because there are a number of alleyways that people can shoot down. If this had been a straight normal road, I'd be like, yeah, ghost, you can't go into anything else. Along this road, there's a number of creepy little alleyways that you could go down. While we're talking about creepy little things along this road, there's a video on YouTube, and it shows a box of tea bags floating off the shelf behind a man standing there who is oblivious to it, and then the tea bags falls onto the floor, and it made Whitstable famous. It ended up on the TV and all this sort of stuff. Looking at the video, I'll put a screenshot on here and I'll put the link to the video in the description of this, so you can go and look for it for yourself. I'm very much in two minds about it. Right at the beginning, you'll see there's a shape of a black shirted guy just disappears out the corner, and I do notice that they pan up to the screen of the video and you don't see all the four screens of the CCTV. But apparently this is their proof of a ghost in that shop, and it's a health shop that along that parade. I'd love to have gone in there while it was open and all that and check it out, but I'll say everything was shutting. Say that though, the chip shop along here, absolutely banging chips. Best chips I've had in ages. But yeah, so this is another one. The Royal Reserve is haunted by sailors, and yeah, why not? It's an old fisherman's pub. So I can't hold it back anymore. We're going to talk about the coach and horses. Now this is one of the reasons why we did Whitstable, and this is 37 Oxford Street, and so this is just past the Peter Cushing Witherspoon's pub, and I knew some of the stories going in there. I say this has got quite a lot of paranormal activity that is ongoing, and I always not play dumb, but I go up there and I don't want to impose myself on places that I've not preempted. So a lot of other places I'll go to, I'll email them, I'll give them a phone call, tell them I'm coming down, and if they're willing to talk to me. This one, I went on there, it was cold, and this is where I met the barman. That was fantastic. But I started off by just filming outside, and as I do, someone will ask me what am I doing. I don't mind me, I'm just filming, doing some stuff on some ghost stories. And they'll laugh and I go, is this haunted? And they'll go, yeah, I've got loads of stuff going on here. Then this guy, the first guy, was actually brilliant. He told me about an experience that he had just outside that pub. Opposite that pub, well, not opposite, literally the building next to it, is the library. He said they come out there one day, him and his mate, and the library doors just blew open. They walked over there and checked, and there's no one inside that library. And as they come back out, the door slammed on them behind them and locked. These are the sort of stories and events that happen to us in our day-to-day lives that we can't explain unless we put that paranormal side into it, because these are just really bizarre experiences. And he was telling me about stuff that goes on in the pub. No, the footsteps, the banging, and he went in there and he spoke to the landlady in there at the time, and it was a little bit hard to hear. The music was playing, and she was saying, yeah, there's stuff going on over here, there's stuff, shadows in one corner, there's sounds, there's doors that bang, bars, glasses that move off the bar, all this sort of stuff. He come out and he started telling me, and I sort of heard roughly what was being said, and then he turned around and points to this gentleman, and the gentleman, I turned around, he's got a stunning moustache and a straw hat on, and he's the barman of the pub. And I asked him if it's haunted, and he says yeah, and he does this little bit for me to camera, and it's fantastic.
I'm Sporo. I am a bartender here at the Coach and Horses. Now, this place is extremely haunted. Not only do they leave pennies around, when I was closing down last night, for example, at least 3 times, you see them moving beside you. Turn around, they're not there, obviously. Notice another one. Just as I was leaving, lock the door, and I see one walk past the door, past the window. Yeah, mate, this place is super haunted.
Now, just in case YouTube mutes that bit, because I've got the background music is playing, I'll just briefly go over what he says and shadows. But one thing he said that really does interest me, and that's about the pennies. So these pennies turn up all over the place. This goes back to, remember the Brighton video? If you don't, I'll put the link in the bottom. Go and watch the Brighton video where we talk about the hotel there, where these pennies keep turning up, and they turn up at another place in Brighton. These pennies turned up in this pub, and they keep finding pennies all over the place in this bar. What is it with these pennies? Is there some real significance with the pennies? I know years ago about putting pennies on the eyes when people passed away and that, but I did know something going to this place that I'm going to share with you now. I may have the name or names of the people that could be haunting the Coach and Horses. So we're going back to 1881, and this is Frederick and Francis Ruck. They are the landlord and landlady. They are in charge for 10 years. During that 10 years, they are said to rule that pub with an iron fist. Literally, they took no mucking about in there. Very, very strict. Although things happened, and we'll get into a bit of that later, they were seen as not to be messed with. And some people took umbrage to this and didn't particularly get on with them. Other people thought they were the nicest people on earth. Years later, when they're taken over, left the pub, and obviously passed away, late 1940s, early 1950s, a gentleman comes into that pub and he's staying there, and he said he's woken up by a man standing at the bottom of his bed and says his name is Frederick. This confuses the gentleman because he doesn't know anyone in the pub at that time by that name, that he's staying there. No landlords or landladies. He's sitting up in bed now, staring at this man at the bottom of his bed, and all of a sudden his senses kick in, and he's thinking, what the hell, I've got a man standing at the bottom of my bed, and he looks at his clock and it's still like 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's looking up at the gentleman. The vision of the gentleman starts getting fainter and fainter before it disappears. He gets up in the morning, tells other people about what he's seen. They'll think he's a bit crazy and says, oh, maybe it's a ghost, maybe it's a ghost. He then tells a barmaid what he had seen. He describes the man to her, And she says that she sees this man often walking up the stairs of that building. When we get later on, we are jumping well forward now to the height of shows like Most Haunted, and apparently a medium went into that bar. I guess then it may be harder to get the history. The medium stands in the bar area and comes out with Frederick and Francis immediately, brings up their names immediately, and he says that they're talking to him and they don't want to leave. This was their place. They don't approve of some of the changes that have gone on and they're angry. I don't know who the bar owners were back then. I don't believe it's the same lot that have it now. It would be interesting if the bar staff there now have the same description of Frederick, and that he was a rather short, stocky gentleman with hardly any hair, and Francis was quite tall, slender. That is the description the medium gave, not me. That's the description the medium gave. Now, I believe that medium got that information from somebody else. I believe he got it from somebody who worked there in 98. People who watch this, who live over in Whitstable, may know who this lady was, because she was finishing up one night in that pub, cleaning everything, and she says that she sees two figures standing by the door when she's about to close up. And that is exactly how she described these two figures. And then they vanished. When she turned around, they'd gone. So again, we've got sort of like something backing it up. Now, if she told the mediums that, and they went now a couple of years later to do this, there's your link. And again, I'm not poo-pooing mediums, but if they've just used that same information, it does explain a lot. But we do have something else that went on in this pub, that somebody may be blaming it for their death, and it's coming back to haunt it. And as the story goes, 1857, two gentlemen were asked to take some alcohol to London, and on their return, one of them was found suffocated to death. What it turns out, now their names were, before I go on, I'll just get their names right for you. James Bennett, he's one who passed away, and Joseph Gardner. They're taking their coach down to London to deliver the alcohol, and apparently they stopped at the Coach and Horses, and James Bennett had a pint and passed away on the way to London. What we have on the return, James's body was taken to the George and Dragon, where they're going to hold an inquest. It seems that during that inquest, it came out that maybe the alcohol, either what they were being given to take or what they had at the Coach and Horses, was overly proof, and he decided to take some more and he passed away. Other people say that he now comes back and wants revenge at the Coach and Horses because he blames them for the pint of beer that he had before he went. Probably not the fireball what he had on the coach that he shouldn't have had. It weren't his. But apparently the body did stay at the Coach and Horses for some time before being moved to the George and Dragon. So again, did something happen there that brings that into play? But I say, some people do believe that the spirit, the alcohol spirit, was so proof that that's actually what killed him and nothing else. The Coach and Horses has definitely got a certain feeling about it, and I do like their painted wall outside of it. It's got some wicked artwork on there, and there's a nice little drawing of Peter Cushing on there as well. But again, I can't beat what the barman said. His stories are brilliant, and the way he told them and the way he ended with the drink, it was just fantastic. Now, part of my research, once I come back, I was looking online and I did find this little section here about something completely different. This is going back to Harbour Street, and it's because I forgot to mention this when I've done it earlier. So in Harbour Street, it says, like many old buildings and streets, Harbour Street has its fair share of ghost stories. The famous ghost story of the Grey Lady, who is said to haunt the Fishman's Chapel. According to the legend, the Grey Lady was a nun who fell in love with a sailor and was eventually hanged for her sins. Her ghost is said to appear at the chapel on stormy nights, and many locals claim they have seen her ghostly figure. So this falls into both sides of what we have. Maybe it's the sailor she was waiting for on the foreshore, and then going to the fisherman's chapel after that when he doesn't turn up. And after her death, she haunts both areas. And again, a stormy night. So you've got this grey lady haunting Harbour Street and the foreshore on stormy nights. You can't get no more classic ghost than that, can you really? So the next one we're looking at is the Old Neptune pub. Now this is along the foreshore, and it sort of sticks out into the beach area. That's put it in sort of like a risky position over the years. So much so in 1853 it was very badly damaged and structurally during a big storm, and they had to do a lot of repairs to it. But in 1883 there's another massive storm, and a lot of people lost their lives out at sea, and that was actually used as a temporary morgue. Some people say this has left a feeling in that building that may be the reason why people feel it's haunted today. But on the 29th of December 1897, the actual pub was destroyed by another massive storm. So how can this be haunted by the people that maybe lost their life there or were kept there? Well, it seems that the building was rebuilt using all the old timbers from the original building and put back in exactly the same place. And it used a lot of other bits of timber from other buildings that have been damaged during that storm that people lost a lot of their lives in. There are reasons why this could be haunted. Again, we have the standard doors banging for pubs, glasses moving off the sides in there, all that standard sort of ghost feeling around the area. But we do have something a little bit more of this place. Now what we have at the Old Neptune is the ghost of a gentleman sitting outside. So not actually inside the pub this time. This is by the rear of the pub, so that actually looks out onto the front of the sea. Now unfortunately I couldn't really get much decent photos and filming of the pub. It was packed when we were there, and due to the instance of some girls going off into the sea, I didn't feel comfortable filming up there. If you're not a member, I'll do it on a live feed, but I will explain it on the member stuff. I don't want to keep pushing the membership because I appreciate anyone who joins as a member. Just that I don't want to say stuff on here. I don't want to say stuff on here that can be seen by everybody because yeah, well, nothing really bad, just a funny thing that happened. But yeah, this gentleman is seen sitting at the front of the Old Neptune looking out to sea. Some say they've been able to have a conversation with him, and when they turn around he's gone. Others say they smell pipe tobacco, and they turn around and they see an image of a gentleman there, or they just see the smoke coming away from an area where there's nobody sitting. So there are quite little strange little things going on, but no solid sightings until 1922. This comes from people that are working in that area, and they were outside and it was a nice sunny day, and they look down and they see a gentleman sitting at the end, and they walk up to him, ask him if he wants a drink, and the gentleman turns round, and as he turns round he disappears right in front of the bar staff. Now this is said to be seen by 3 or 4 people. Again, 1920s, you are looking at a lot more people believing in paranormal activity back then, ghosts and spirits, so you take things a little bit with a pinch of salt. But this figure is then reported quite frequently up to the 1960s of this gentleman sitting on the wall. We go up to the modern day in 2019 when we've got the last sighting that was actually on the paranormal database that has since been removed. Now what they said on there is that they were sitting down there as a family and they kept smelling pipe tobacco, and they're looking over, they can't see no one down there at all. The husband gets up because it's actually getting quite strong. He walks down there, and as he comes to the edge he looks down and there's a man sitting on the edge smoking a pipe. He goes, "Excuse me, could you stop, because it's all coming over my thing." He goes, "Can you move away?" The man turns but doesn't acknowledge him, The man turns his head again to the other side and then vanishes, just disappears, leaving the smell of the pipe tobacco behind. The dad doesn't know what to say. He walks back to the family and goes, yeah, I've told him to go away. Yeah, the smell of pipe tobacco is just as strong, and his wife gets up, walks back down there, and there's no one there. She comes back and said, well, he ain't there, but the smell's still really strong. The smell got stronger and stronger while they sat there, but eventually they got up and left because it was so strong they couldn't bear it. And I just think that gentleman was probably doing that to spite. So maybe ghosts are evil. Now the last one I'm going to leave you with starts at Harbour Street, goes up High Street and goes up to Oxford Street. And this is the ghost carriage that rides along the cobbles, pulled by a horse that is said to have a man and a lady in the back of it. Now this is meant to be seen all the way through the decades, and people can't explain where it's come from. They can't find any reports of a horse and coach tipping over along there and people there losing their life. But over 100 years, this has been seen going up that street in the dead of night. Some people say they see a lady's face peering out the side of that carriage, looking like she's distraught or in distress. Is she being taken away against her will? Could this be the nun? Could she being taken away to her execution? It would add up that something that emotional could trigger that response, that replaying history, if it's that continuous. What is interesting, people say, like now, when it's heard now, that they can't make out the sound first of all because they're not used to hearing like coach wheels on cobbles, because there's no cobbles along that part. So they're looking down and they can hear something come along and there's nothing there. Then all of a sudden, out of darkness comes this horse and coach flying down the road. So those sort of ghost stories that I think are more intriguing, where you could link it up to the nun or the fisher lady, they would fit into it. She does fit into that story if it was her being taken away for her execution. Again, the history of the place is wonderful. You've got to go there, go through all the little nooks and crannies. There's so many little buildings along there that have got their own little individual ghost stories. If you stop and talk to the shop owners, they will tell you loads. I mean, I'm hoping I'm going to put a lot of filming in here of just walking along the alleyways. A lot of those little narrow alleyways have got their own little ghost stories, because quite often people see shadows either walking down the alleyway or walking across the alleyway when there's no one around. And I can imagine that, you know, that is a creepy thing to happen, especially late at night. It'd be very off-putting. Even more so when you know that a tragic event happened there like 20 odd years ago. It's a very tragic and sad event that happened. Going forward, this is what makes our history. Our history, our paranormal history, is made up of tragic events. So when things like this do happen, they're not unexpected. It's just another footnote in our history as a country. Anyway, thank you. My voice is going again, talking too long. You only see about half out of the video. I record about an hour and a half. I cut it all out. But again, thank you for your support. We're nearly at the 5,000 subscribers, so we keep pushing it. We'll get there eventually. And so YouTube said by August, so I wanted to beat that, but I don't think we're going to. But let's see what we can do. Again, thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next video on Friday. Bye.